Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. So we will wait 1 more minute for everyone to join, and then we can start. Okay, we can start. So first of all, I will briefly introduce myself. My name is Lidia Villanova. I work as a project manager for Alliance Against Cancer, which is the national research oncology network in Italy. And we are partners of the IDEA4RC project. And this is why we have also invited today the IDEA4RC project coordinator, Dr. Annalisa Trama, cancer epidemiologist in the National Cancer Institute of Milan, which is who is our speaker today. Hi, Annalisa.
Hi, Lydia, and welcome to everybody, and thanks for joining.
So I will start by sharing my screen. Can you see my presentation? Yes, okay. So just to show you like the agenda of today's webinar, after a very short introduction, we will have Annalisa presentation. And after that, you're very welcome to ask any question you may have by raising your hand or by using the chat. We will then launch a live opinion poll with a few questions when you can give your feedback and also your experts' view on the different aspects that are involved in the project. So you will be able to answer to the questions directly on your device. And finally, we will have a wrap up when I will remind you about the next appointments. So very briefly introducing the project, IDEA4RC is a research project funded by the Horizon Europe framework program with 8 million budget approximately. The project spans across 4 years, starting in 2022 and ending next year in 2026. The consortium includes 26 partners with a wide variety of expertise, and it is coordinated by the National Cancer Institute of Milan. The scope of the project is to develop a data space that will facilitate the secondary use of clinical data from patients with rare cancers, with the objective to advance the research on these very low incidence and high heterogeneous diseases. The data that will be collected will focus on 2 main rare cancers families, which are head and neck cancers and soft tissue sarcomas. Here is a map to give you a snapshot of the European representativeness of the consortium. We have 11 clinical centers across 8 member states belonging to EURACAN, which is the European Reference Network on rare adult solid cancers, rare cancers. And these centers will act as data providers. So they will share their clinical data with the IDEA4RC infrastructure and test the IDEA4RC solutions within different pilot case studies. Here you can have a snapshot of the technical partners, which are 10 and really encompass a diverse expertise in data computing, so natural language processing, legal informatics, data standard, software architecture, privacy enhancing technologies, etc. And the consortium also includes 4 partners with more cross-cutting expertise from ethics and law to communication abilities. And just a few words to introduce the IDEA4RC community that we have established with the objective really to engage a wide and diverse set of stakeholders in an open dialogue across the project developments. So the idea is really to co-create together the IDEA4RC data ecosystem. So if you are interested in subscribing to our community, you will receive tailored content according to the interests and preferences that you will express in the form. And then you will be invited to take part in multiple engagement activities, such as online forums, surveys, focus groups, where you will be able to really have a say on different aspects of the project. For instance, data governance issues, legal and ethical aspects, business model, IT, innovation tools, really any aspect that can be related to your professional profile. The community was launched in June 2024, starting with patient advocates from EURACAN that were the first joining this initiative and has currently grown up to 47 members from multiple health sectors. As you can see from the pie chart, we are really interested in engaging with any actor in the health and research community. And therefore, if you wish to have a say on the project developments by participating in the next upcoming initiatives, I would encourage you to subscribe by scanning the QR code. And now I will give the floor to a video that will show you the main highlights of the project. The video was developed by our communication partner in Firenze and will really give you
More than 5 million European citizens live with a rare cancer. These diseases are not common, yet all types of rare cancers, taken together, make 25% of all cancer diagnoses in Europe. Still, there's much we don't know about them. Highly specialized clinical centers in Europe routinely collect health data to provide the best care for patients affected by these diseases. Such data are a precious resource for scientific research. Each center, though, receives very few patients with the same type of rare tumor. Therefore, their data alone are not sufficient to obtain new insights on the disease course, the effectiveness of treatments, or factors influencing prognosis. However, it is not easy to use data from multiple centers together. They are collected and organized in ways that vary from one center to another. Moreover, accessibility is limited for privacy reasons. This is where the EU-funded project IDEA4RC comes into play. This project aims to develop a specific software. It will allow researchers to easily and safely analyze relevant data collected by multiple clinical centers. Engineers are developing tools to harmonize the data across the centers. In addition, computer scientists, with the help of clinicians, are training AI algorithms to extract information also from texts and categorize them in a database. The database will include an extensive list of variables specifically selected for researchers to use. But what about the protection of patients' personal data? Each center will host a capsule, which is like a digital vault where their own health data will be stored. As an additional layer of data protection, every researcher interested in analyzing the data will need to submit a request. A dedicated software component will handle the request, asking the authorization to every center involved. After receiving the permit, researchers will be able to run analysis over the data using the IDEA4RC infrastructure and tools. They will only have access to the results of their analysis, while the raw data will never leave the clinical center's vaults. In this way, researchers will gather new evidence on rare cancers while keeping patients' privacy safe. Researchers and professionals with a wide range of expertise from 25 institutions spread across Europe are turning the IDEA4RC project into reality. They are working together to make data access easier and get a better understanding of rare cancers. The ultimate goal is to improve the quality of care of all European citizens living with these diseases.
Thank you.
Did you know that the most dangerous...
sorry. So we'll now give the floor to Annalisa for her presentation.
Lydia, you have to give me the permission to share my screen. I don't know why now if I...
Okay, I will.
Okay, now I can.
Okay.
Probably you had to go out from... Okay.
Perfect.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, good afternoon to everybody. Once again, I think Lydia and the video already presented the main topic of IDEA. So, being the coordinator, I can only share with you, which was and is still, okay, the vision with which I developed, this project. I'm an epidemiologist as a background. I'm a medical doctor. I'm working on rare cancer, so on tumors on which is very difficult to do any type of research since the last 15 years. We have been trying to collect data in different way, using population-based cancer registry, developing clinical registries, working with administrative data set. Any type of these different way has different challenges that I will try to summarize later on. That's why the vision, it's really, to be able to have a full, observational data set, to have a very comprehensive set of data that could be really open to all the researcher that needs this data, that can contribute to increase the understanding on this tumor. But of course, the vision is to have this database in a way that would not represent a burden for clinicians or data manager or for young oncologists, spending maybe nights or extra hours to filling up this database. So with a transparent, way and procedures for accessing this database, because we know that these are goldmine for all those working on this tumor, but in general, for all those that are interested in research. And of course, we are in 2025. We can't consider to develop, data set without having in mind the privacy. So IDEA4RC, that is really an innovation process, it's aiming to find solution to have this vision become true, which really a vision that should allow automatization, okay, of data retrieval, of data quality, and a very open, transparent way to make this data available for everybody. So we really want to make things easier for everybody, for those that produce the data, but also for those that will use the data. Which are the challenges that IDEA4RC is trying to address? Well, we learned many of these challenges working on the first registry, clinical registry that we tried to develop in the context of the European Reference Network. Huracan has Lydia anticipated. As soon as we started working with more than 100 different healthcare providers, which basically are the healthcare provider of Huracan, we clearly understood that when databases were available in different formats, okay? The quality was different, the type of data collected was different because the objectives for which each institution maybe developed its own database was different. So there was a lots of problem of interoperability, not only technical one, but also semantic one. And if a database was not available, of course, we had to start discussing where these data, okay, could be available in the electronic health records. To, of course, immediately realize that these electronic health records, although electronically, are mainly made up of text. So in each hospital, all the amount of data that are daily produced is high and is increasingly, continuously. This is mainly, text, so there are no structured data available. And, we are not in the US, we are in Europe, we talk different languages, and we don't have really, tools strong enough to really work on data extraction, so on NLP model on all the different languages. So not only we have basically a lack of a multilingual natural language processing model. And of course, the problem is strongly technical, but we know also that around the data use, there is also a great concern that is one related to the governance, okay? So the different data set of the different hospitals have a different way for accessing the data. The legal framework, so the legal basis for the data reuse, it's another challenge because this differ across the different member states. And although we are, preparing ourselves in Europe for a European health data space, there is still a lack of trust sometimes in the partnership, in the user, of the data. And although we are talking and working towards a data economy, still, the data processing, it's a process that requires a lot of resources, and often, these resources comes from the hospitals if the hospital wants to invest on this. Otherwise, a really clinician that works, as I would say, sometimes extra time for this data collection. So you see that this heterogeneous landscape, it's really, what IDEA4RC tried to work on, leverage, of course, on some initiatives that were initiated by previous projects. The first one was a starter, was the first project through which we tried to develop the Huracan registry. Basically, in starter, we didn't have a lot of funding, so we had to rely on a data manager or someone, okay, manually including the data into a case report form, which was developed, by us. This is the example for the head and neck, okay, registry. But you can see that already you have here Hospital 1, Hospital 2, Hospital 3 with the concept of the local server. Because the main innovation introduced by Starter was the idea of working with the federated learning. The federated learning is basically privacy-preserving solutions that allows data to remain within the premises, so to stay within the hospitals. It's based on the mathematical principle of federated learning that basically divided the computation, the algorithm of the computation, into two parts. That one that is run locally, and another one that is aggregated, okay, centrally. So basically, only was explained also in the video, basically results, okay, first results of the analysis come out from the hospital, not individual record data. That's the reason why we said that the federated learning is a privacy preserving solution. So we started on a federated registry, and we also, since the beginning, we felt important to have an open access. We developed a data governance that is basically managed manually by our data manager through a series of surveys run by RedCap. So we tried basically to answer, okay, to address some of the challenges, especially those related to the privacy and to the trust, working on privacy preserving solution, and try, to ensure a transparent and open way for data sharing. Although, everything was basically run by human resources behind it, not only from the coordination point of view, but also, of course, at the hospital level. Something else that we have done in developing the Huracan registry, this is something that we have done with another project called Blueberry, which was anyway inbuilt within the Huracan registry, was basically to leverage already existing database. We decided to basically use the concept of a common data model. One of the most common is the OMOP common data model that has been launched since at least 10 years by the ODCI community. Although OMOP was not focusing at the beginning on cancers, now there is an oncological working group which is actively working since 3 years, but still it is immature, okay? So when we start working on the oncological model of OMOP, we realized that there were some issues, some things that had to be addressed, and that's why we started to develop an oncological model more tailored, still more tailored to the oncological specificity. But the idea behind is that if in an hospital we already have a database, we should avoid, of course, to re-input the data. So the idea that we moved forward with Blueberry was basically to harmonize already available data set using a common data model, namely the OMOP one. We didn't change anything else, so the data infrastructure was always federated. The federated learning was our base, and Vantage 6, which I forgot to mention, was basically the system we use for the federated infrastructure. So what are we actually doing? So how are we moving forward, okay, from the current status of the registry with IDEA4RC? Well, my vision, the real vision that I have is that if the solution of IDEA4RC will work, we will not need any registry anymore, okay? Because basically the ecosystem, the data set that will be established in the hospital should replace completely the concept of the registry, should completely replace the idea that someone has to spend time in collecting the data. Because basically the idea is really pushing towards the automatization of the data extraction, bearing always in mind the issues of data quality, of data harmonization, and data biases. So what is our idea? Let's start looking here really, at what we are doing in each hospital. So really from the data provider point of view. We have an hospital, we know, I already stressed that in an hospital we have structured and unstructured data. And we said already that one of the major concerns is the privacy and is the security. And already we had envisioned basically with the federated learning, an infrastructure where the data do not move from the hospital premises. So in IDEA4RC, we further stress this concept because we have developed what also in the video were referred to as capsule. These are secure processing environment. For those of you that are more acquainted with the HDS terminology, the IDEA4RC capsule are really an example of secure processing environment that really, are based on a zero trust model. And Eugenio Gaeta will go into the details of these secure processing environment characteristics in the next seminars. Why the secure processing environment are so important? Because basically what we are envisioning within IDEA4RC is indeed to develop a multilingual NLP model, and Unai will present all these in another seminar following Eugenio's one. So we are developing with Ude Usto and Fondazione Bruno Keisler a multilingual natural language processes that can basically not only extract the data from the text, but of course also, to properly tailor the data extracted into the oncological common data set and common data model that IDEA4RC is developing. So basically, these systems that we are developing will extract whatever will be available from the electronic health records structured data or unstructured data. But in addition to this extraction, so in addition to have this ETL processing, the idea is that everything will be tailored with the minimum data set that has been mapped into what we call the IDEA4RC oncological model. Again, Unai will go into the details of this, but we develop a minimum data set which basically aims to collect information on the entire cancer patient trajectory, from the diagnosis until the death of the patient. So really following longitudinally the patient history and the different phase of disease. This concept of phase of disease, because that cancers is diagnosed, is treated, is cured, but sometimes it might recur, so it might come back. Not only once, but several times. So these issues of different longitudinal phases is really where the oncological model of OMOP had some limitation and where we worked. So you're really welcome to come and listen about our, proposition for IDEA4RC oncological model. So once basically our NLP and tools will extract the data, will basically harmonize the data into the oncological model, which basically will work in parallel in OMOP and in FHIR. So regardless of the type of infrastructure that your institution is considering working with, what we are developing are solutions that basically are applicable, okay, to both. What we do in hospital, so in the end, we will work with the neck and sarcoma, and okay, the data automatically extracted will go into the a secure processing environment. The same approach is basically done in each of the different hospitals. So you see that the approach from the data holder perspective, it's completely different, because in here, human being should not collect data. We still need human resources, but we need IT, okay, human resources. We need human resources able to install and ensure that the tools that we are developing, okay, will smoothly work within the electronic system of the hospital. So we don't need data manager, we don't need, clinicians inputting the data. So it's a really revolutionary way in envisioning the data collection. I would say that this is really the perspective of the data holders, but of course now let's try, to go on the other side. We still have the federated, of course, learning approach. We still have a data governance, but we have improved also, the way in which this data could be used, because in addition to a data governance that is already aiming at having this data open, we have basically added what we call a metadata layer, which basically it's a way for supporting the user in finding the data, because you know very well that data should be first of all findable and accessible. And that's why with IDEA4RC, we really worked a lot in making data, accessible and findable. And basically what we have been doing is that we've really worked on developing a virtual assistant that we call Raven, that should really support the user into what we define the user journey. So the journey that basically includes finding the data, understanding the data, apply for the data use up to the use of the data for the analysis. I will end my presentation just giving you a sense of what these virtual assistants might look like. Because if you think that this is something of interest for you, maybe with Leah, we can organize a meeting also, on Raven. Basically, Raven, it's really intended for supporting the user to use the data. So to hide the complexity that I just explained to you, but to guide the user in understanding which are the variables that are available in the ecosystem. And you can see that you have a list here, for example, of the different variables. You might have information about the gender, about the lifestyles, but you see here that you have patient, hospital data, patient record, cancer episode, because again, as I was telling you, you have different phases of disease that are properly tracked. And that's why we call metadata search, because, inputting textually, the variable of interest, you can see whether the variable is available or not. You can see for which phase this variable is available, in which of the center contributing. You can check data availability. You can better understand, from where this data is coming from. And we are working also towards providing indication of quality for each variable in addition to the entire data set. As I stressed at the beginning, we are automatizing the data extraction, bearing in mind, of course, the quality of the data. In addition to the data discovery, Raven, it's really contributing also to address the governance, the administrative procedure for accessing the data. So we are basically envisioning a data access template that, can be customized accordingly, to the information required by the different healthcare providers, because you have to envision that this is a multi-center data ecosystem. So different hospitals might require the different information before approving, a data access. And that's why this is a very flexible way to accommodate the request of information from the different data holders, but to provide to the user a unique form to fill in, instead of, in the case of IDEA4RC, 11 different forms, one per each healthcare provider. And you can basically see that once, the application is basically sent, you can have you can trace, where, the data access application stands. And once, for example, your data application is assigned, the information that are included in the data application can be automatically included into the agreement. So this is a tool that is really trying, to support and to simplify the information that a data user has to provide to different healthcare providers to support the users in tracking the status of the data access, and also in, again, automatize, the filling up of forms with the information that have been already provided. We are also innovating a lot because, of course, an issue behind the problem of the data access and privacy, it's, of course, the identity, and we are basically using the self-sovereign identity within IDEA4RC. And of course, we are providing a user interface not only for finding the data, not only for requiring data access, but also for providing analysis. You see on the right how Vantage works now, and on the left how Raven is going to improve it. These are really detailed, but it's just to give you a sense about how IDEA4RC is really trying to leverage and to ameliorate solutions that are currently available but that are not as widespread or are not so easy to use as we would like to. And with this, I will stop my presentation, giving back the floor to Lilia.
Thank you, Annalisa, for the very comprehensive presentation. I will just look at the chat. We have a first comment from Hussein Orun. Sorry for misspelling. Thank you for the very nice comment. As a cancer researcher and a former family caregiver, I wish the best and full of success. Appreciate for sharing the project with those are interested in. Thank you very much for this enthusiastic feedback. And then the question is, do you need to validate this method, capture-recapture method, comparing with conventional non-AI aided method of data collection?
Of course, the NLP have their own metrics to assess the validity of the results of the NLP. But anyway, yes, we are envisioning. So it's not that we need, but we are envisioning basically to compare the data that will be extracted automatically from those that we collected from the registry. Because as I explained, IDEA is really, building on the work that we initiated with the European registry. So our idea is exactly, to check for the variable that are in common between the minimum data set of IDEA4RC, because in IDEA4RC, the data set we develop, it's, I would say, smaller than those that we have in the registry, because of course we are innovating, so we couldn't innovate on 200 variables. We decided, to focus on the most relevant for specific use cases. So we will anyway have a minimum data set able to answer effectiveness of treatment question, as well as the prognosis of prediction. But anyway, although minimum, our idea is exactly to check for the same patient whether, when we will extract the data automatically, the results of the NLP will be the same, or to what extent and how they will differ with those, with the information extracted by the data manager. So we will compare the NLP in this way. So we're using as a benchmark the registry.
Thank you, Annalisa. I don't know if there are any more questions. Yes. First one, is Raven a sort of search engine?
Also, it's, I would say, Raven, it's not only a search engine, because it's a search engine for the metadata. So for the first step of the user journey, where basically the user will have to search, for the variable and for, information around the variable. So to this extent is also a search engine. I say that is not only because if you are interested, I think we should ask Laura to explain. Raven will basically also ensure, the link with the other tools, the data governance and the federated learning infrastructure. So through Raven, the user, in addition to do their search, will also, directed to other tools, which are the data governance and the federated learning approach. So it's a tool that combines, different systems developed for the different purposes. So metadata search, data access, and data analysis. I'm not sure whether I answered your question. I hope so. If not, please, happy to try to answer again, or to ask Laura, to provide also later on by email a more complete answer.
Yes, if there is interest in Raven, we can definitely schedule a webinar also on this tool in the series. Let's move to the next question. Thank you very much for the comprehensive presentation. Do you have any plans to try this for other cancers? I work on severe pregnancy outcomes and we are struggling with the same barriers for European collaboration.
Well, thank you for the question, because something I forgot to say is that the solution that we are basically promoting are not specific for rare cancers. The model, the minimum data set, of course, and the common data model is specific for cancer, okay? But it's not specific for rare cancers. So our oncological model, okay, can be used for other cancer. So it's really something for all oncology. But the solution, so RAVEN, okay, and what is included in RAVEN, the data governance layer, the federated learning approach, the NLP and the ATL processing behind it, the secure processing environment. These are solutions that are not, okay, cancer or rare cancer specific, so a really solution that can be used by anybody. That's why in the community of interest, we really try, okay, to involve not only those working on rare cancers or lung cancers, but we are really open because this is our idea that our solution could be really exploited. Again, the only exception is the oncological model because, of course, okay, it goes with the world. It's based on oncology. But the challenges that we faced, we are going to publish also, but Unai will explain, for example, the problems that they encountered with the OMOP, okay, common data model, which was a common data model that was not specific for cancer. So, for example, the lessons learned also from Unai could be something already useful for you. Although, you know, then we will go ahead with details that are only oncological, of course, specific.
Thank you, Annalisa. Another question. The final goal of the project has been explained very well. My question is, which is the level of maturity of the network? Can you already carry out federated research? How many centers have already developed capsules and are ready to carry on federated searches?
The level of maturity is highly heterogeneous because there are centers that are highly advanced, okay? So it was easy for them, okay, to extract the data and also to implement, for example, the capsule. There has been a test for the capsule deployment in almost all the centers, okay? So we don't have the capsule deployed with the real data yet, but several tests have been run in the different centers for the capsule deployment, which is in an advanced stage. I would say that the big differences in terms of maturity are related to the data availability. So how much the data were already, I would say, structured, how much the different electronic health data set available in the hospital were already, okay, linked in order to be used. And this is really where the major differences are. So we really move from centers like mine, the INT, or the Polish, you know, colleague, where we really rely on text. And so if the NLP will not work, simply, we will have no data, okay? In other centers, the situation is much better because, for example, in some centers in France, or in Sweden, they have already, you know, developed, and now we are working with them in order to work together. They have developed their own NLP to extract the data. So you see that in centers, we have only text. In others, we have text, but we have also an already infrastructure that has their own NLP. Some centers have already everything's in OMOP or in FHIR, so we are working with them only, you know, in tailor the data extraction into our oncological and specific data model. So it's highly heterogeneous. Intentionally, actually, we selected countries very heterogeneous because we also, you know, had to understand which were the major problems also for the future, okay, to be addressed.
Thank you, Annalisa. Now there is a question on the standards. I see that OMOP and FIRE have been used to help standardize data across the centers. Have you encountered a requirement to also include the clinical data interchange standards consortium tools in the harmonization work as DTM?
Well, OMOP is based on standard, and our before going into the mapping, we have worked with the different clinicians in defining the minimum data set. That was the one I was referring earlier on, where we work with clinicians in identifying standard. So basically, the standard that we agreed with the clinician were those used also, you know, as a benchmark, okay, when we were working in OMOP.
Thank you. And next, how many patients by order of magnitude are planned to be included in the whole decentralized data source?
This is something that we still don't know. When we basically ask the centers, okay, how many patients they would be able to contribute, these are expert centers from Huracan. So for head and neck and sarcomas, each expert center has basically to, is considered an expert if they see at least 100, okay, new patient in the hospital on a yearly basis. Here we are talking about 3 to 4 times, okay? So we are envisioning from 300 to 500 cases per year from each hospitals, and we are looking into a 10 years period of diagnosis. This is what, okay, we roughly discuss with the hospital. But of course, as I said, for example, in my institute, we are envisioning, okay, around 10,000 patients if the NLP would work. So in theory, okay, it would be from 300 to 500, okay, cancer of head and neck and sarcoma per center for 10 years. But we have to check, okay, if the tools will be able to extract everything for all the patients needed.
Thank you, Annalisa. I cannot see any other question. Oh, yes, one more. I have a question regarding NLP. How did you manage the annotation work? Was this the most burdensome part of the activity?
Indeed, it was, or better it is. We are working with a tool developed by one of our partners, which is CliniNote. And this is, of course, a big issue, because in order to do this annotation, you really need domain expert. And when I was discussing with my colleagues, they said that for each case, they need at least 1 hour, okay, to really annotate. So to annotate the minimum data set, to an expert, it takes 1 hour, okay, per patient. What we asked is so far to provide us at least 20, we started on a step-by-step basis. So we are starting asking 25 patients, okay, for the neck, 25 for sarcoma to each hospital, so that they can start working with the NLP. But yes, it's a long process. You need expert, and the expert don't have time.
Thank you, Annalisa. So I would now move to the poll, to the live opinion poll. So I will launch the poll and you can answer directly with your device. Thank you. Now I will use the last 5 minutes to remind you about the next webinar, which is going to take place in February. So here is the schedule of the whole webinar series, and the next one is upcoming in February on the 19th and will be held by Eugenio Gaeta and Unai Zulaika, two IT experts from Spain. And it will be a deep dive into how the data extraction is automatized via the NLP. and how the data storage is secured through the capsule, which is this new secure processing environment that Annalisa has mentioned before. So please do not forget to register. We will send you a link for the registration in a follow-up email. And also all the community members will get a mail on that purpose with the link. You can also find the link on the project website, of course. So thank you very much for your attention, and we really hope that you like the webinar and will stay tuned with the next activities.